Good morning or good afternoon, depending on your time zone. Thank you for joining this coordination call to provide an update on the humanitarian situation in the region impacted by the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. I'm Mark DeCourcy, the Senior Vice President of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, and I lead the Chamber's Corporate Citizenship Center. We have the responsibility at the Chamber in disaster relief and recovery programming. First of all of us at the Chamber are profoundly saddened by the losses by these devastating earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. We offer our sincere condolences and solidarity to all those affected. As many of you know, the Chamber has a long-standing relationship in the region through the work of both the U.S. Türkiye Business Council and the Chamber Foundation. Throughout this week, we have both worked with companies, nonprofits, and governments to help coordinate the business community's humanitarian response and maximize the impact of aid. Within hours, NGOs on the ground alongside first responders were helping people. Additionally, the U.S. government and other countries deployed resources to support life-saving activities in the affected areas. Currently, we are listing more than $30 million in aid on our corporate aid tracker. We know that this is just the beginning of the private sector's response to this disaster. Please let us know if you're doing what you're doing to contribute to the solutions, either financially or in kind. You can find information on how to do that in the chat function and on our website. At the Chamber Foundation, we want to ensure we are helping focus the private sector on the right problems, develop high-impact solutions to help survivors. From that standpoint, our goals on the call today are as follows: sharing perspectives on the situation of what the U.S. government, the government of Turkey, and the private sector are doing to assist in the disaster. Highlight immediate needs for what the global business community can do to assist financially or with in-kind donations. And I want to stress that in-kind donations must be requested. Please don't assume what's needed. Experts will be able to share information with us, and we'll share it with you, so that if your company does have one of those superpowers, a service, an expertise, or a product that is needed in bulk, we want to connect you to the right people for those donations. And lastly, today, we want to clarify processes and identify challenges to accelerate the response. We'll hear from the U.S. Ambassador to Turkey, the Turkish Ambassador to the U.S., USAID leadership, and the chair of the American Chamber of Commerce in Turkey. And then we'll have time for Q&A. Post your questions in the chat, and the Chamber Foundation team will cue our panel moderator with those questions. We'll do our best to address as many of them as time permits. As I said, we have long-standing ties to Turkey. The U.S. Chamber is fortunate to have as part of our network, Jennifer Meal, Executive Director, U.S. Türkiye Business Council. With offices both in Washington, D.C. and Istanbul, the Council acts as a key connection for the U.S. businesses operating in Turkey. And today, she's here to introduce our distinguished speakers, all of whom are exceptionally busy in the response. And we're incredibly grateful for their time today and for their service. Jennifer, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mark. I'd like to join you in expressing condolences and extending sympathies to all of our friends and partners in Turkey, reeling from the earthquakes this week. As Mark mentioned, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is home to the U.S. Türkiye Business Council, and we have an office in Istanbul through our partnership with the Turkish Chamber of Commerce. We're also delighted to have on to today's call the AmCham, represented here today by Tankut Turnaroğlu. There's 1,700 U.S. companies in Turkey, and the presence of U.S. businesses is growing. There's a $32 billion trade volume between both countries and a growing interconnectedness of both our economies and supply chain linkages. $60 billion of cumulative investments from U.S. companies in Turkey, and more than 100,000 employees directly or indirectly supported by U.S. companies. U.S. companies' operations and factories are in this affected region, especially for agriculture, logistics, energy. And of course, employees and families from U.S. companies live in this region. So our heart goes out to everybody, and we want to be a long-term partner in this recovery. Now we are delighted to have Ambassador Flake join us, and many of you know Ambassador Flake from his distinguished career in the U.S. Congress. For about 2 decades, he served 1 term or 2 terms as the Arizona member of Congress and in the Senate. We're really delighted to have him as the U.S. ambassador serving in Ankara. He was sworn in about a year ago today, and he's been an exceptional envoy, uniting our two nations to address global and regional challenges, and of course, now one at home in southern Turkey. Ambassador, may this discussion accelerate the road to recovery, a journey we will take together and see through to the end. With that, we'd like to turn the floor to you, and thank you so much for your time and partnership.
Hey, thanks for having me on this call, and appreciate the good work that's already been done. I just want to express my condolences as well to Ambassador Mirjan, Tankut, and all those from Turkey that are on the call. It's really been inspiring to see these workers, the rescue workers, do what they're doing. It's just an incredible tragedy, but so many acts of heroism throughout. Let me just get a very brief update about what the U.S. is doing here. I was in Adana day before yesterday with my wife to greet two U.S. search and rescue teams, one from Los Angeles, the other from Fairfax County, Virginia. About 160 personnel, 12 dogs, about 170,000 pounds of equipment. And some of these guys, I'm surprised, aren't playing in the Super Bowl this weekend. They're big guys who are doing great work in Adıyaman right now, day and night, to try to rescue additional survivors. And so we're really pleased that they're doing what they're doing. We also are standing up a field hospital in Hatay, one of the hardest hit areas, in partnership with Samaritan's Purse. Those personnel and equipment will arrive at Incirlik today, and we will have heavy lift capability in the coming days, but don't yet. So that equipment will be taken down by Ministry of Defense here in Turkey. We are partnering and only responding when asked to do certain tasks and missions, but we've had great cooperation from AFAD and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Defense, and others. We also have assets at Incirlik, some Blackhawks that have been conducting missions, ferrying relief workers to some of the affected areas, as well as the injured out. We'll have many additional assets in the coming days, some Chinooks, some heavy lift capability that we'll be working with in cooperation with MOND. So I see Ambassador Mirjan there. I just wanted to compliment him for what he's doing to mobilize support in the United States. I'm hearing from friends of mine who are hearing from him. And I'm just really impressed with what's going on with the Turkish diaspora in the United States and how they're being mobilized. Great work. Let me just say one thing. I remind my former colleagues on Capitol Hill and others as well, is that over the past several years, the people of Turkey have responded all over the world to natural disasters that have happened, particularly earthquakes and floods. I think they've responded from Mozambique to Ecuador to Pakistan and everywhere in between, more than 50 countries on 5 continents. And so Turkey has really paid it forward. And so when you have an earthquake of this magnitude, of this scope, no country could deal with that alone. And so it's been heartening to see so many countries step up. At last count, it's about 95 countries, either in country or offering assistance. And the U.S. is doing its part. Just announced yesterday, USAID announced $85 million between Turkey and Syria, and that is being implemented. I've had discussions with Samantha Power. They're working, and you'll hear from USAID a little later. But of course, President Biden and President Erdogan have spoken. Secretary Blinken has spoken twice already with Minister Çavuşoğlu. Our defense ministers have connected as well. So we're doing what we can in response to the need. But the need is great. So thank you for what's going on. And I'm sure Tankut will will explain, the impact on U.S. related and connected businesses here in Turkey. Thank you for what you're doing. Over.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Flake. As you noted, we're delighted to have Ambassador Mercan here representing the Republic of Turkey in Washington. Ambassador Mercan has been ambassador for about 2 years, and he has been very busy, and right now is one of the greatest times of need, and we're really appreciative of his joining us today. Prior to joining the embassy as ambassador to the U.S., Ambassador Mercan was in Tokyo in Japan, so he certainly is no stranger to earthquakes and earthquake recovery. I'm sure this experience will come in handy with the road ahead. We turn it now to Ambassador Mercan to deliver some remarks and thoughts from his angle. Ambassador Mercan.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Flake, and all of you. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your efforts. Just a minute ago, Secretary Blinken came to our embassy to extend his condolences on his behalf and on behalf of American people and American State Department. So that was very touching for us. As a matter of fact, we are working hand in hand with Americans. As Jeff said a while ago, we are mobilizing almost everybody. And in the last 2-3 days, you can't imagine how individual Americans stop by, drop, in-kind donations. Some like diapers, heating materials, clothes, winter clothes. Of course, we can understand its importance for the Turkish diaspora, because many of them have some kind of relatives, people that they know. But when we hear, Americans dropping by and trying to help in any way they can, that's very important and very touchy. So this once again showed how important man-to-man, human-to-human dialogue and interaction to establish good opportunities. Now, of course, it's the worst disaster in our history, I would say, because in the history of Turkish Republic, because the cities affected with higher populations, much higher populations than the earlier ones. Many buildings collapsed, and many people wounded. It's much widespread than our earlier earthquake. It's like affecting about 13.5 million people. So after initial recovery periods, there has been a long recovery period where we need to bring back people in their normal, decent life. So let me thank American government, American administration on your behalf. They were very helpful, from the very beginning on. Secretary Blinken spoke with our foreign minister, not only extending help in the short term, but also discussing what can be done over the long term. And as a matter of fact, I understand Secretary Blinken spent some time for this long-term coordination and cooperation. Now, of course, Jeff's being there as an ambassador is our opportunity, is our luck, is our fortunate, because he is so influential and effective in his career. So apparently, if the ambassador is from political ground, that might be much more helpful. Now, I would request 2 things from Jeff, if possible. I would ask if he can do something Now we are at the stage of preparing a resolution in the Congress, starting from Senate first and then the Congress, because House side is in recess. So it's been in the progress. So if Jeff could use its good influence in Senate and Congress, that's very, very appreciative of it. And the second one, of course, life goes on, and in fact, we know that Super Bowl will be in Arizona, and Jeff happens to be from Arizona, and if he can help us to remember during Super Bowl the victims, the earthquake in one way or the other, that is, that would be incredible, because these difficult times are the times that bring people together. These difficult times are the times where we will establish long-term relationship beyond political sphere, beyond strategic dialogue. So those are the two things I would ask, if possible, of course. And secondly, for all the business community that are with us, especially, and also State Department, help is much needed. I'm not going to disguise it. Today, for instance, I'll give you a snapshot. Today, in all the over 800 masjids, mosques in the United States, they are going to donate. They are going to raise funds. Tonight, in all Shabbat prayers in the United States, Jewish rabbis decided to spend their sermon to Turkey and raise funds. On Sunday, I know churches in the United States are taking up and creating some kind of donation process. On Tuesday, Orthodox Church is organizing a big multi-faith prayer led by Elfidoporos, who is the head of the Orthodox, who is the Orthodox Church. I forgot, head of the Orthodox Church in the United States. He's organizing. It's expected that many leaders from different groups will attend the prayer. I will be there as well. So it's a huge effort all over the places. This might be one of the worst disasters the world has ever experienced, because of its impact, because of its devastation. Now, of course, we ask business community to help in any way they can, in any way they wish. That's very important. I'm not going to shy away saying this. Already we received very generous donation from Boeing and a few other companies. Boeing has already explained this. Of course, American administration's $85 million worth of help is extremely important, but it's, we need even more. So we have already mobilized everything we can. Business community, very important. I know you are with us. You want to be with us. Please help in any way you can, in any way you wish is possible or proper for you. So that's probably what I would stop. Especially, I would also thank people from the State Department who is following us. Also, there is a Turkish philanthropy fund listening us right now. I think he's there with us as well. I mean, consider any kind of donation, any kind of help. I also thank Boeing, for instance, in arranging some kind of cargo plane. They're working on it. We need cargo planes to carry all the in-kind donations. In-kind donations are pouring in. So probably I should stop here. Thank you, Jeff, again. Very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Marajan, for your steady leadership and for all of your remarks. It's amazing to see the U.S. and Turkish communities coming together at the greatest time of need, and really poignant all of the examples that you cited. And we look forward to seeing you later today at the embassy. We'd like to now turn it to Tankut Bey, Tankut Turnaroğlu. He is the chair of AmCham Turkey. He also is the president and senior vice president for P&G's regional operations in Turkey. And he's a great example of the amazing human capital that is in Turkey and that U.S. companies draw upon every single day to drive their global business needs. Tankut has led the AmCham in Turkey for several years. There are more than 100 member companies in the AmCham, and he does an amazing job in both his corporate role and many of his hats in NGOs. He's on the board of several other business associations in Turkey, and he's very passionate about humanitarian causes and sports. So with that, Tankut Bey, I turn the floor to you to share some perspectives from businesses in Turkey.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Ambassador Marjan. Thank you, Ambassador Flake. We are deeply saddened by the loss of lives that we have faced with this unmatched calamity at the unmatched proportions. As Ambassador Marjan said, this is the highest probably disaster in our republic's history. Unfortunately, some of our member companies have employees or their families also facing loss of lives. Some of them are injured. Some of them are still under the rubble. So it is really very, very difficult times for our member companies and our people and our the families. Of course, our companies first prioritize the health and safety of our employees, and this has been the initial focus. But together with that, of course, some more members and regional partners' facilities are badly damaged, and many of the regional businesses are non-operational, and probably it will take days or weeks to make them operational again. Many of our members have focused on evacuating their employees to safe places. So together with that, of course, our member companies, together with the Turkish companies, worked hard on the rescue and relief operations in the region. There are both in-kind donations and also monetary support. Initially, the in-kind donation has been more in the urgency of construction vehicles, medical supplies, hygiene products like diapers and pads, which my company is producing, food, water, and shelter. Many of our members are medical and pharma device companies, so they are also partnering with the Turkish ministries to meet the urgent needs that are arising on the health area. For construction vehicles, for example, our member, Bosun Caterpillar, is providing 724 support for vehicles, regardless of their brand, in the region. Our member, Ford Otosan, another member, sent search and rescue teams to Hatay. They also established a field hospital in Kahramanmaraş with doctors and nurses. Enterprise, another member, sent hundreds of caravans for the region for sheltering. One of the most urgent needs is energy, especially like batteries. So another member, Duracell, here is playing an important role on sending power banks into the region and coordinating shipment of batteries to the affected areas. So most of our members are sending aid bucks for contributing to solidarity campaign. As I said, P&G, we produce hygiene products. So immediately from the first day, initially with the plane, then with trucks, we send diapers, sanitary pads, washing powder, our Prima brand has trucks in the region for sheltering the babies, sending tents for sheltering, and many of new programs are also starting together. For example, today, our partner Turkish company Arçelik and Ariel detergents are sending trucks to be able to wash the clothes in the region for the needs, as the needs are also developing as the days pass. Another member like Mondelez, Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, they send trucks of food, water, and beverage to the region. And there are many, many more examples. On the digital side, Microsoft is working with AFAD on the urgent needs of the digital disaster management, on the software, on trying to improve the coordination and distribution of the aid and help. Amazon Web Services provided earthquake map infrastructure, again working with AFAD. On all those activities, we ask all AmCham companies to do their work together in the AFAD's coordination. That was the request, right request from the Turkish government from early hours of the after the disaster, and we've been using AFAD coordination to make sure that the aid goes into places where it is needed. At the same time, many of our members are also doing contribution to international NGOs who are already there and operating, like International Medicine, Global Medics, who are opened up facilities, hospitals, plus local NGOs, and especially with Red Crescent. Many of the donations and then in-kind donations are going to Red Crescent. So while these are the urgent aids are very important to improve today's conditions, we should not forget that it will take a long time for the recovery, and there are different needs are arising for really recovering to the region. For example, one is the affected children, their education, sheltering and restoring their psychology. So some of our members are starting to work with global NGOs like UNICEF, but this is one area which many of our members, we seem to be very willing to help. Also, our especially local partners in the region is facing, of course, business disruption and employment loss. In many areas, those it will take time to bring those local SMEs back on their feet. So we are also working on a well-structured initiative that can be designed with public-private partnership to restore that business continuity. So unfortunately, another area where we see is the supply chains are being impacted on what all is going on. So this is another focus area for our members. We have some suppliers in the region. Gaziantep is a big industrial city. For example, for P&G, they are not only a big supplier for Turkey, they are the main supplier of our Pampers diapers across Europe, and they are facing disruption. But we all believe with the proven resiliency of Turkish supply chains, probably in a few weeks, we'll be able to bring those suppliers up to speed. And that is also another focus area of our member companies, to work with their local partners and bringing them back on their feet to contribute not only locally, but globally to the supply chains. Maybe I stop here and then give the word back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Tankut Bey, for outlining what the current needs are and giving us some visibility on what we can expect in the next coming weeks.
The only thing I forgot, probably the employee donations. That's what I should say, because there's also multi-million-dollar employee donations activated globally. Many of our members, the way it works is globally, our companies' employees donate, and the our companies match that donation. So almost all our members globally started their donation programs on top of the local donations that they are doing, that I must also underline. Sorry, and thank you.
No, thank you, Tonkape, for outlining all the initiatives. We have one more speaker to round us out today, and this is Doug Stropes from U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. Doug is the Division Chief for USAID's Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance, and he's the response manager for this particular crisis as well, managing the teams that are on the ground right now in Turkey. So Doug, we will turn it to you for USAID's perspective.
Hey, thank you very much, Jennifer. And thank you to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation for organizing this event. And also want to acknowledge the commitment made by all the private sector leaders who were able to join today and prioritize our efforts as we try to respond to this terrible catastrophe in Turkey and Syria. I want to start off by saying I, along with all of my colleagues at USAID, echo the condolences and sympathy that Ambassador Flake has already expressed. And I'm honored to be joined by Ambassador Flake and Ambassador Marajan, along with Tankut, and relay the regrets of my boss, Sarah Charles, who is unable to join today. She was called to an urgent meeting with the Secretary of State where they're actually talking about the U.S. government's response to this catastrophe. I'll start off and share a few points here and apologize for my camera not being turned on. I'm actually calling from our operations center here in Washington, D.C., and didn't have time to get out to an area where we're able to use our cameras. From the U.S. government side, hours after the earthquakes happened, we rapidly mobilized to assist the government of Turkey and the humanitarian partners in Syria. As the U.S. lead federal coordinator for international disaster assistance, USAID has capitalized on our abilities to provide aid to both this region as quickly as possible. And as you heard from Ambassador Flake, we leveraged our longstanding partnership with the urban search and rescue teams from Fairfax County, Virginia, and Los Angeles County, and worked closely with the Department of Defense to quickly deploy nearly 160 rescuers and 12 dogs to be able to get out to the area and search around the clock for survivors in some of the hardest hit areas in Turkey. These teams are supplementing USAID disaster experts who are also on the ground and are coordinating with local authorities, humanitarian organizations, and U.S. government personnel in the region to assess earthquake-related damages, identify priority needs, and provide life-saving aid to affected communities in both of these countries. But it's clear this will be an incredible humanitarian needs in the coming days, weeks, and months. As you already heard yesterday, Ambassador Power, the USAID administrator, announced $85 million in humanitarian assistance to provide emergency food, health, shelter, and water support to the vulnerable populations in the area. And we're also aware that the United Nations will be soon issuing a funding appeal for both Turkey and Syria. The appeal for Syria alone will be $500 million, and the appeal for Turkey is likely to be greater than that. The U.S. government certainly can't respond to this disaster alone, and we're pleased that so many international partners are also responding, and we appreciate the generosity and compassion that the business community brings to this conversation and seeking to help the people of the region during this difficult time. When disasters do occur abroad, you've already heard cash is best, and it's the most efficient and effective way to help those communities and provide immediate relief on the ground to these disaster relief efforts. And we're grateful for the ability of the business community to quickly leverage your networks and provide assistance. From our years of experience working with you all, we've seen tremendous impact that the private sector can have. And some of the best ways that we've already heard explained here today are for companies to assist, including helping channel or match cash contributions from concerned employees to humanitarian organizations and providing assistance directly to aid groups. Also, some of the international businesses or entities may have unique skills, assets, or resources they can bring to humanitarian response. Maybe it's a unique technology or logistics capability, or some special business products, processes, or service. And in these cases, we encourage folks to work with the UN's Connecting Business Initiative. This is a USAID funded and supported organization that works to develop local business networks and coordinate those responses in the area. For more information on how to connect with the local Connecting Business Initiative or CBI organization operated in Turkey, you can go to connectingbusiness.org and see more information on how to coordinate and leverage these activities. Also, when responding, we ask that the private sector coordinate with actors on the ground to ensure these contributions are appropriate and feasible and don't end up being more of a detriment or a distraction to the disaster response. To facilitate those partnerships, USAID founded the Center for International Disaster Information, or CIDI, which has information about how groups working on the ground can connect with each other, and we can get the donations and or the private sector assistance into the right hands. And for additional information about our Center for International Disaster Information, you can go to CIDI.org. And finally, the road to recovery to assist survivors and affected communities will be long. And while our immediate focus is helping them right now in the immediate aftermath, we must keep our commitment to helping the people of Syria and Turkey to build their lives, rebuild themselves, and focus this long after the initial period of urban search and rescue comes to an end in the coming days, and we go to the road of recovery. So we look forward to working with all the colleagues that are on the call today, and are thankful for this great partnership. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Doug, for outlining the tremendous work that USAID is doing to address this crisis and for these many resources that we can draw upon and partner with. We'll certainly be following up with some of your colleagues within USAID. Now I'll turn to my colleague, Rob Glenn, who's the Vice President of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's Corporate Citizenship Center, and specifically Vice President of Global Resilience. Rob has tremendous experience in this area working with FEMA, and he leads the foundation's efforts to connect government and private sector capabilities and expertise, enabling readiness for all hazards and advancing resilience. Rob's also a veteran, having served in Iraq and winning a Bronze Star. So with that, I will turn it over to Rob to moderate today's discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer, and thanks to all of our speakers. We've got a number of questions, and so I'll try to get to these as best as I can. But as we heard from all of the speakers, logistics response is enabling the search and rescue effort and alleviating the humanitarian suffering. Can you shed some light around logistics and supply chain stability, specifically the conversations between the U.S. and Turkish customs regarding transporting relief items and personnel? And then what do companies really need to know to better support logistically? Maybe Doug, from your standpoint, maybe you could kick us off with a USAID perspective on the logistics effort.
Sure, and this might answer the question that I see Mr. Mark DeKosh has raised in the chat as well. We're encouraging folks to work with the Turkish Disaster and Emergency Management Authority, known as AFAD, A-F-A-A-D, to verify that the commodities being collected are both needed and wanted, and there's a distribution plan for them once they get there. So we're asking that prior to shipping bulk materials or bulk items in response to the requests that have gone out, for folks to work with the Turkish authorities. And we've been told that again, the point of contact should be right there with the Disaster and Emergency Management Authority. With regard to the challenges of getting items there through the logistics channels right now, I don't have a good answer to that. We too are facing those same challenges. Some airports remain offline. Some airports are having limited operations due to the damage and destruction. We're working with Turkish authorities to see where we can help with those assessments, and looking to see what opportunities there are to get the roads and the infrastructure back to a fully operational capability and capacity. But we are in a challenging time where the ability to receive commodities is somewhat limited, which is why we want to make sure that it's almost a just in time, that you verify that the commodities are needed and there's a partner on the ground to receive them, get them through the customs clearance process and distribute them. We don't want to see where we have piles of cargo containers queued up in ports awaiting distribution. Thanks.
Thanks. What, just as a follow-up, what are the immediate capabilities that the private sector can support with from an in-kind standpoint? We heard from the AmCham several ways the private sector is already leading on the ground. And then also, I think we heard from His Excellency that there's some greater capability from an air standpoint. Are we fully using the capacity of the private sector right now to support logistically? And if there's some needs right now, this is certainly the place that it can be shared.
Yeah, please go ahead, Ambassador.
Just a few words. First of all, Turkish Airlines from the United States is carrying in-kind donations that are sent by the embassy and consulates all over the United States. So if there is request for in-kind donations, so long it's really necessary, please contact to either us or to our consulates in Washington, in Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, New York, Boston, Miami. That's all. So you can reach out to our consulates to arrange the logistics. We also arranged a ship cargo all the way from New York, New Jersey port to Mersin port, and that will depart next Wednesday. Will take about 100 containers. We will send 100 containers, but all the in-kind donations made by the people of the United States, we are all full. So we will, I don't know whether 100 cargo will be enough to get all these things, but there are items which are more important than others. For instance, you know, we have a company here donated 300,000 diapers and hygiene products. We have to send, that's out of Los Angeles. Another NGO sent worth of like $3-4 million worth of goods. We are carrying them from Miami. Turkish Airlines capacity is almost, you know, full. We are working together with Boeing to explore other logistical, help we can get. We are working on it. Not definite. We don't have definite answer yet. There is another ship coming out from near Miami. You know, we are using that as well, but that Miami ship is probably departing tomorrow, or no, as of today. So it's probably of no use. Now the question is either Ed Tankut and Doug said, you know, logistical problem still persists. You know, we're shipping everything to Mersin port through ship. Also, we're trying to use Adana airport. Sometimes it might be difficult, but at the same time, there is airport, Incirlik Airport, that has been used for very important necessary equipments to be shipped there. So we Adana Incirlik Airport also used for a few things. World Kitchen Council, together with American Embassy in Ankara, is establishing a big kitchenette in the region. You know, Jeff probably said this. There is one field hospital established. I don't know where they landed. They might have landed in Incirlik. So we are working, and if you know, the best way to arrange the logistical support is through our embassy, because we get the approval. If stuff is going, if in-kind donations origin is from the United States, please contact with us. We'll try to find logistical help.
Thank you. And the humanitarian needs are only growing day by day. And I know that some companies are not always going to be able to immediately respond financially or from an in-kind standpoint, but in about a week or two, they might be able to more significantly be a player, certainly as supply chains stabilize. So many people have been displaced because of the earthquakes. Can maybe Ambassador Flake, since you're there, or the AmCham chair, maybe describe, you know, what the housing situation currently is, and then maybe what it will eventually be for the audience today.
I'll just say that in our discussions with AFAD and MFA, the needs have turned from field hospitals to more tents and weatherized tents now to house people. So that's going to be a need for a long time. Tankut will have better information on the scale of that. But just an anecdote, we have in our branch embassy office in Gaziantep about, I think it's 37 locally employed staff. All of them for the first night or two slept in their cars. And we've been trying to find alternative housing for them. And in Adana, of our guard unit there of 9 people, all of them for the first couple of nights slept in their cars. And that's kind of the norm in some of these areas. So that's a great need, and it's going to be around for a while. But Tankut may have additional information.
Well, similar, I think the shelter need arises from 2 reasons. One is many buildings maybe not collapse, but not safe enough to live. And there is even expectation of aftershocks or even further earthquakes. There's the rumored maybe another earthquake in Adana and things like that. So which makes people really stay away from their housing and staying in their cars or AFAD tents. So sheltering will continue to be, I think, a need in the coming days and weeks. Plus, many of our people who are accepting to get evacuated, we know that they are being airlifted from Turkish Airlines, Pegasus, free of charge to other cities, safe cities. We know that hotels are asked, and they are happily, of course, agreed to that, to have some certain proportion of their occupancy opening up for those people in need of sheltering. So I was just talking to our Hilton regional president, who has many hotels, also many hotels in the region, but many hotels across Turkey, more than 60. So they are opening up in every of their hotel minimum 30, 40 rooms for those shelter needs with full cost board. And many other hotel owners are doing that. So that I think hotels or relative homes in other cities, this is also now been, I think, actively activated, let's say. But people in the region are really, I think, need shelter due to those reasons in the coming days and weeks.
Thank you for that. We are almost at time, and so before we really close out the call, what I'd like to do is ask you to really deliver a call to action of, you know, what you think the immediate needs are, and then also in the next 10 days, as we get through the search and rescue phase of this disaster and things get a little bit more stabilized, what kind of support the private sector might be able to provide would really be helpful to communicate today.
Yeah. For example, one immediate now is emerging need is the sanitary toilets, mobile plus sanitary places where people can take shower and do, and that's what, for example, my company is actively working on, bringing some of our personal care brands together, and they're now preparing like trucks, which are mobile trucks, to meet that needs, as people will be living in tents and shelters or in cars in the coming probably a couple of weeks at least.
And Doug, from your standpoint at USAID, what are you looking at over the next couple of weeks that as a call to action?
We're really looking at those needs that we're hearing from the government, specifically looking at winter clothing and medical equipment that so many of these families are now, as we've heard, living out of their cars, and they've lost access to their most basic clothing needs to stay warm and protected during this period. And also so many medical facilities received damage or were destroyed. How can we ensure that those communities still have medical care in them, or how can we replenish the medical supplies of those facilities there? So that's some of the areas we're focusing on what we have available in our warehouses and what we can rapidly get from vendors to be able to supply to the region.
On my part, considering the fact that the disaster hit and affected 13.5 million people, and over 6,000 or 7,000 buildings collapsed. Those are high-rise buildings, and many of them unusable. I think shelter is becoming very important. Some of them probably move out of the region, but in order to maintain the economy in the region, in order to continue manufacturing, continue providing supply to international customers, if you ask me, short term, long term, medium term, shelters, housing is something probably business community has to consider. And as I understand, probably Jeff will elaborate on this. U.S. government is working on planning this, medium to long term planning, and they're trying to assess what can be done. Maybe you will all coordinate all these efforts. Shelter. Otherwise, many people move out of the region, and it seems that will affect the manufacturing facilities, because the region is, I think, manufacturing wise, I don't know what percentage of Turkish GDP they produce, they manufacture, but it's, as far as I know, Maraş and Antep are the big source of manufacturing. Tankut Bey probably knows this better than I do. So, we should make people that to live in the region is safer, comfortable, and bring their life back to as much as possible to normal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is really number one need. For example, for Procter & Gamble, there are 4 big global suppliers in Antep. And right now their facilities are undamaged, but they cannot have people, because most of the people are back to their villages trying to rescue their families. And of course, if they don't have a shelter, they may not be able to come back. Same is for the distribution centers and things like that. So I would definitely agree with what Ambassador Najan said.
Ambassador Flake, you started our conversation today, so I'd like to ask you to provide some quick closing thoughts, and then we'll close out the call.
Well, just first, a big thank you to all of those who responded, and those who have encouraged the U.S. government to respond in the way that it has. I know, and I mentioned, from my former colleagues in the House and Senate, received a lot of outreach, and I'm telling them that the programs that they've authorized and appropriated money for are working, and will continue to help assist the recovery here. And but this is going to take not just government, but a lot of private sector support. And that's why forums like this are so important. So anyway, thank you, all of these companies that are responding. It's needed and appreciated here. I can tell you that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ambassador Flake, and thank you, Ambassador Marjan, USAID, Doug Stropes, and then also Tank, who's leading the AmCham in Turkey, and all of you for your interest, participation, and your future action to help those impacted by these disasters. As we heard, this response is still early. Many needs have yet to be defined or even met, but there's so many opportunities to act immediately in the response into recovery over the short term, and then also long-term rebuilding. Waiting is probably a precursor for failure. So actions needed now. Start thinking and planning about how your company can be helpful to the response in the region. We heard from the AmCham directly how the private sector is using their capacity and capabilities to help stabilize the situation. That's immediate and needed. If you do have any kind of lingering questions, please contact us at resilience@uschamber.com. Also in the chat, our resource page and our corporate aid tracker has been activated. We're tracking more than 30 million of both financial and in-kind contributions at this point in time. We'll keep that updated, and as this situation continues to unfold, we'll also be willing to do additional calls like this if we need to. Before we do close, I do want to thank the companies that have made this call possible through their support of the Chamber Foundation's Disaster Response and Community Resilience Program. And for any questions on how you can get involved in the future, please reach out to us again at resilience@uschamber.com. Thanks all of you for joining today, and thanks all of you for what you will do to help those that have been impacted by these earthquakes.
Thank you.
Thank you for organizing. Thank you. Jennifer, thank you.
Thank you very much for this
Thank you
opportunity.
so much.